I am the Nature Hacker, and this is your world. So today I want to talk about the body, and basically this is going to be the first part in a multi-part series, hopefully 10, 20, 30 parts, I don't know. But this should be a quite a long series, and basically what it is going to be me teaching you everything I know about the body. I'm probably not going to be able to dive into ultra high level chemistry or biology or things like that. I do know a lot of that type of stuff. I have a degree in nutrition, minor in chemistry. I worked in a biology lab for 5 years roughly. So I have a very deep understanding of biology and physiology and nutrition and chemistry. But really what I'm going to share here is just practical information, okay? Yes, it took all of that knowledge that I had to gain all of this new information, but really what matters here is the new information. I mean, it's important that you have a foundation to find this stuff out on your own. Really all that it takes is you to come up with ideas and go to Google or Google Scholar, especially Google Scholar, and do a search and see if you're right. Like, let's say you have a detox headache from taking diatomaceous earth. This is something that happened to me years and years ago. I figured that maybe I realized that it was killing bacteria in my intestines, so I was like, maybe the dead bacteria is causing the headaches, and I made that connection. There's like a Herxheimer effect that says that is the case. So it's things like that. You come up with an idea and you search it out, and the more you know, the more ideas you'll be able to come up with. And not only the more you know, but the more you share, the more you teach. When you teach, it makes your brain able to learn. It puts your brain in a state of learning. And it's like going to the bathroom. You're not going to be able to eat and eat and eat and eat and never excrete anything. If you want to keep eating, then you have to get rid of what you had already eaten. So it's the same type of thing. If you want to learn new stuff, you have to teach what you already know. It's just it's a principle of life. So if you want to learn, teach. Anyway, so I'm going to give a brief overview. The most important thing in the body is the gut. The most important thing in the body is the gut. So we'll talk a lot about the gut. I have talked a lot about the gut. I have articles on my website about it, like the quintessential guide to gut health. But I'm going to kind of go off the cuff here. So I'm going to talk about the gut. I'm going to talk about other places in the body where problems can happen, like the kidneys, the liver, bone marrow, gallbladder, pancreas, brain, things like that. So we're going to dive into it. First, what I want to talk about is heavy metals. Now, when I think about the body, the most important thing that I think of is bacteria. Bacteria, yeast, things like that. But most of the pathogenic organisms in the body are bacteria. There's also parasites, definitely, but usually parasites will eat microbial biofilms. So if you're getting rid of the bacteria, you're kind of, in essence, getting rid of parasites too. Also viruses. Viruses also live off of bacteria. So you get rid of the bacteria, you get rid of the viruses. Now also fungus, of course, like candida, but when that's one of the things, obviously, but I think it usually affects women more than men. But it's killed in the same way as a type of bacteria. So really, if we just focus on bacteria, we'll get everything else as well. So that's when I think of the most important impacts on the body, it is bacteria. Now, the question becomes, why are the bacteria growing? I mean, one of the thoughts is that, one of my deep philosophical thoughts is that this has been, I believe in Christian thought, and I think that a big part of it is after the flood. If you know anything about the Bible, you probably know that people used to live 700,000, 800,000 years, 700, 800, 1,000 years, whatever, before the flood. And after the flood, people's lifespan was reduced to 120 years. Okay, and I believe that we are still at that time where the lifespan is 120 years, up to 120 years. Okay, and then Moses talked about how the lifespan was 80 years if you're lucky, when they were in the wilderness. So basically what I'm seeing happen is the lifespan's 120 years, but because of crap, literally, pun intended, I guess, but because of crap in the world, that 120 lifespan is reduced to 80. And when I say pun intended, it's because bacteria is crap. Crap is bacteria. So bacteria. So we'll fight it, and if we fight it successfully, we can live 120 years. This is actually substantiated in the science. There's something called germ-free research. And if you are interested in anything that I'm talking about, my entire philosophy on health is founded on germ-free research. Just like my theory of rockets in space is based on a Clues Forum post by Boethius, all of that, of the rockets don't work in space stuff I've done, all stems from that one post by Boethius. That spark just ignited a big bang in my mind, okay, with the rockets don't work in space. This also, the germ-free research spark ignited a flame in my mind for health, really, and in the whole perspective I have on health. I came into health, I was always interested in it. I wanted to lose weight. I was chubby as a kid, so that probably was the main thing that got me into health. But and then in college, what really got me strong into health was my insomnia. So I was really working hard to try to figure that out, and that brought me just through everything. That brought me to learning about everything in health, because literally it took a full knowledge of the whole body just for me to even solve insomnia. And I have great success solving insomnia. I now know that my insomnia is caused by Campylobacter in my gut, and to a lesser extent, Streptococcus. Streptococcus causes anxiety, which I'm going to get into all this stuff. But anyway, so germ-free research, write that down, germ-free research, go look that up on Google Scholar or whatever. But what germ-free research says is that some animal that's living in totally germ-free conditions, they have no bacteria in their gut, no bacteria anywhere in their body, they have no bacteria, they live 50% longer. So let's say a mouse lives 3 years normally. If you raise them in germ-free conditions, then they live 4.5 years. So that's 50% longer. And then I applied that to humans. They're like, what if we could achieve the same thing with humans? And, you look at a typical lifespan of 80 years. You add half of that onto it, 40. So 80 plus 40 is 120. And that lines up with what the Bible says we're supposed to be living. And what we have seen some people live there. So that was like, wow, that was a eureka moment for me, where I was like, wow, if we can control the bacteria in our bodies, we too can live to be 120 years old, reliably, reproducibly. Just, that would be something that would always happen. If we control bacteria, we will live roughly 120 years. So that was a huge thing for me, and when you realize that bacteria are cutting off 40 years of your life, you realize that probably all these diseases have to do with bacteria. If they're not completely based on bacteria, they're at least in part from bacteria. So anyway, bacteria I think is the most important thing in our health, but I think that, toxins are also very important. So I'm going to talk about metals. I might get into some other things. I probably will. I'll try to, and tell you ways to detox these things, and then I'm going to go into the different types of bacteria. This is probably going to be a long video if I persevere and do everything I want to do in this. All right, so let's talk about heavy metals. We got nickel, we got mercury, we got lead, we got aluminum, and I'm going to couple that with fluoride. So again, not again, but also on my website, if you go to naturehackerproducts.com, you click on the health remedies tab, and just scroll through all those health remedies. These are all products I made based on knowledge that I gained. So I didn't just go out randomly making products. I built products, I invented products based on this knowledge that I gained, okay? Now, nickel, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to say how these heavy metals really react with health and how that happens. So what I think nickel does, what it does is sensitizes white blood cells. I mean, nickel is the most potent allergen, at least the most potent metallic allergen that we know of. Okay, you know, things like botulinum toxin or something are probably more potent allergens, but as far as metals are concerned, nickel is number one. So what nickel does is it causes allergies, it causes skin reactions, it causes flushing of the skin, it causes hives, things like that. So if you're a pretty allergic person, you probably have nickel. And and there are other types of allergies too that you can't really notice, like hair loss, I believe, is an allergy, because I remember it really started happening big for me when I used a shampoo that had decyl glucoside in it. And it turns out, after all of these years, I look up that decyl glucoside is created basically with a nickel catalyst. So there's a lot of nickel in it, and that's probably what caused the allergic reaction and my hair to fall out. And I'm really trying to get it to come back. I thought it was from a bacteria, but I started treating for bacteria, and my hair just hasn't, even budged at all. So I'm thinking now that, well, I'm hoping now that methylation will help. But anyway, I'll try to get to that later. So nickel causes allergies and all this stuff. What I think nickel also does is it causes an overgrowth of two types of bacteria, those being Campylobacter and H. pylori. Now, Campylobacter, its main symptom for me is insomnia. It's like you're just like, let's say you're laying in bed and you're just like, I'm awake. You're not tired. You're not necessarily anxious. You're just laying there and just like, why can't I sleep? So that is my main symptom of Campylobacter. Also, Campylobacter can cause kind of like shooting pains in your body. Like you might experience like a prick here, a prick in your leg, wherever. You feel these like sharp pricks randomly, kind of slow. It's not like it's all prickling like your foot falling asleep. No, it's more of just like you'll feel prick. Like, what the heck is that? So that's Campylobacter. Now, H. pylori, you'll know if you have that if you're constantly clearing your throat, especially after you eat. If you have to clear your throat a lot after you eat, if you are clearing your throat or coughing a lot when you wake up in the morning, that's H. pylori. Now with both of these bacteria, these have been the hardest bacteria for me to wipe out. I basically take products, herbs that kill them every day, and throughout the day, the symptoms come back. I have to take, for Campylobacter, for example, one of the best things I found is ginger. I'm also going to add in chamomile, but ginger is good against Campylobacter. I have to take that like 3 times a night. Before I go to bed, I take 2 capsules of ginger. When I wake up in the middle of the night, I take another couple capsules of ginger, fall back asleep. When I wake up in the morning a little too early, I take another capsule of ginger, fall back asleep for an hour or two. So, it takes a lot, and I think a lot of that is heavy metal, especially with H. pylori, because I definitely noticed that when I'm chelating nickel, and the way you chelate nickel is you take, histidine, L-histidine. So that's the best one for nickel. I mean, for pretty much every heavy metal, you want a combination of histidine and L-cysteine, because they seem to work together pretty well. So anyway, H. pylori seems to be suppressed more when I'm chelating nickel than Campylobacter. So Campylobacter might be using some other metals or other toxins to kind of get an edge in the gut. So I haven't figured that out yet. So anyway, I'm trying to give you a sense of how things happen in the body. Usually it's microbes that cause the problems, but it's toxins that cause the microbes to be able to overgrow, to be able to gain good foothold in the body. So that's kind of the paradigm that I'm dealing with in the body. That's what I found. I am 100% confident that that is how most, if not almost all problems in the body are caused, is from a combination of toxins and microbes. A lot of toxins, obviously our body doesn't use these toxins for good uses, but a lot of times the bacteria or other microorganisms can use these toxins as fuel. So that's how that happens, is the toxins will suppress our own immune system and stuff, but also feed bacteria. So that's how all of this craziness happens. So that's just, the first thing out of a lot of things I want to talk about. Mercury seems to cause streptococcus overgrowth. Streptococcus can cause heart valve issues. It can cause insomnia, anxiety, okay? Streptococcus can cause, PTSD, that sort of thing. What else can it cause? It can cause just, mercury. Yeah, it's just strep. Mercury causes strep overgrowth, and strep causes all these problems. So mercury can cause anxiety because mercury causes streptococcus bacteria to overgrow. And there's a couple different types. When you hear strep, you think of strep throat. That's group A strep, and it does reside mostly in the throat. There's also something called group B strep, which resides primarily in the brain. It sounds a little crazy, but it just hangs out there. It doesn't do much other than cause anxiety and things like that. And also, these strep can, go in the heart and cause heart valve problems. Really, it can damage the heart valve. So, you need to get this under control. And so, really quick, I just want to talk for H. pylori. You want to take broccoli sprout extract. For Campylobacter, you want to take ginger and or chamomile. So for streptococcus with mercury, you want to take adaptogens. So things like gynostemma is my favorite. Things like ashwagandha. Just any type of adaptogen, really. Eleuthero, ginseng. So those are strep, but the strep bacteria is going to keep coming back if you have mercury. So you want to get rid of the mercury. The best thing to get rid of mercury is L-cysteine. I think it also will work good in combination with L-cysteine, or not with L-cysteine with L-histidine. These two basically work together. And this is some in-depth chemistry. I don't really necessarily at this point want to get into it. But basically, when you're detoxing heavy metals, you want amino acids that have sulfur or nitrogen groups, especially special ones like histidine and cysteine have. Anyway, those attached to metals, they chelate metals. So yeah, you want L-cysteine for mercury. I think also L-histidine will help with mercury as well. And then you probably won't have to deal with killing the strep every single second of every day, So anyway, adaptogens kill the strep. Mercury turbocharges strep, so detox mercury and kill strep with adaptogens. Lead, I'm not really sure. I don't think I've really dealt with lead too much, but it's chelated in the same way as I just said for nickel and mercury, so chelate that. And cadmium is a lot like mercury. Aluminum and fluoride, these are both chelated in a kind of a special way, and that is with glutamic acid and citric acid. Glutamic acid and citric acid, that's how you get rid of aluminum and fluoride. This will be mostly in the pineal gland, so you'll feel it right in the middle of the back of your head, like in the middle, like in the center of your head, like here. If you pinpoint it, you go back through the middle of the head, and then like right here-ish, above your ear, kind of. That's where your pineal gland is, right in the center there. So if you're taking glutamic acid and citric acid and you feel pressure there, that means that you're getting fluoride and aluminum out of your pineal gland. So obviously that would cause a lack of melatonin if you have these things. Calcification of the pineal gland is caused by fluoride and also aluminum. So yeah, so you'll notice that. Also, another thing that aluminum does is it's really attaches to the brain stem. So if you stretch, if you're stretching to touch your toes, and you feel like your brain, like your spinal cord, like feeling like your spinal cord is like tight kind of thing, that's probably from aluminum attached to your spinal cord. So, again, glutamic acid and citric acid can help chelate that. All right, so those are the heavy metals. Let me just get into some of the other things. Some other things are organochlorine pesticides and plastics. So in plastics, there's two main things to be worried about. BPA. BPA is mostly in very hard plastics, like, for example, tooth fillings. Those white fillings, like the non-mercury fillings. Those are like 50% BPA. So anyway, BPA is one of them, but also phthalates. Phthalates make up roughly, again, 50% of other types of plastics, and so they're very bad. Things like fake leather, vinyl has a lot of phthalates, lots and lots of types of plastics. So you especially don't want to heat up plastics because then it outgasses these phthalates. So anyway, phthalates, BPA, other hydrocarbons from, burning fuel, stuff like that. Organochlorine pesticides. These are all fat-soluble things. And the way to detox these is with glucuronic acid. But glucuronic acid, that's something that I'm going to be selling soon as Zetox. I have Zetox on my website already, but it's in limbo right now because I'm in the process of making a new type of glucuronic acid that's better. So anyway, glucuronic acid is a great way to detox that. It basically binds onto these fatty type molecules and helps get them out of the body. Another thing is sulfate. So if you take something like sodium sulfate, make sure it's food grade. Sulfate is good at attaching to hormones and these types of things, these fatty things. And also methylation. So methylators like choline, betaine, SAMe, methionine, all these types of things. These are also good for that type of thing. So, it's kind of the hormone disruptor type stuff. These things hide out in the fat. Yeah, so you're going to want methylators, you're going to want glucuronic acid, you're going to want sulfate to attempt to detox these toxins. So that's another thing, different than metals. As far as what they do, I mean, they're mostly hormone disruptors. So, like if you have polycystic ovary syndrome, if you have endometriosis, if you have, as a guy, Klinefelter type stuff, man boobs, things like that. Also, probably, the hair loss, like I said, it probably has to do with nickel. It might also have to do with some of these endocrine disruptors like these. They're also just estrogenic compounds, so, they can cause estrogenic type problems, like I said, Klinefelter, things like that. So yeah, that is another type of toxins. As far as what bacteria they supercharge, not really sure. Maybe Campylobacter. I kind of need to try to link those, maybe. But anyway, that's another type of thing. So we have that. Now there's another type of pesticide called organophosphate, and these are detoxed in a little bit of a different way. Organochlorine was detoxed in the way of like the fatty acid type stuff. The stuff I was just talking about. But organophosphates are a little different. They need tryptophan and tyrosine, in conjunction with, it needs to be oxidized. So what I like to do is combine those with cysteine and histidine. Those seem to be some amino acids that have some oxidation power. You know, there are nitrogens there, there's sulfurs there. Those are pretty oxidative elements. So I like to combine cysteine with histidine, tryptophan, and tyrosine. That way it transforms this tryptophan and tyrosine into these things called oximes, which go in and, you know, pry out the organophosphates from the brain and elsewhere in the body. And as far as what they cause, those organophosphates, I believe in the body they cause excitotoxicity. I don't remember exactly. Obviously, aluminum causes excitotoxicity. You know, so something like glutamic acid and citric acid can help get rid of the excitotoxicity propensity there. So that's another type of thing to detox from the body. Now, what else is there? Is there anything else? That's pretty much it. You know, you're working with the fat soluble stuff. You're working with the organophosphates. You're working with the heavy metals. You know, you get all of that. That's pretty much it. As far as the toxins are concerned. Now, as far as the bacteria, you know, obviously the gut is the #1 place, and I have written an article called "The Quintessential Guide to Gut Health." There's so much there. I mean, maybe I'm gonna make a separate video of that, but just because I can't really dive into that right now, I'm getting tired already of talking for this long. Kidneys, in the kidneys is another place where infection happens a lot, like a chronic infection. What we're really talking about is chronic infections, and that is Proteus is the main one that will cause urinary frequency, and you feel like you have to go to the bathroom a lot, and kind of like maybe your urethra kind of feels weird, feels like maybe it's infected slightly, probably from Proteus. You know, if you have overt symptoms of a urinary tract infection, it could be something like E. coli, but if it's just very slight, like long-term stuff, it's probably Proteus. Lower back pain is a great thing there. Proteus is killed with eucalyptus and clove essential oil, and some others as well, but those are two good ones to start with. Bone marrow. Bone marrow is very fatty. It's a very fatty thing. It's made up of fat. Bone marrow is fat. Very light fat. But what I feel like causes cancer, most types of cancer, is actually in the bone marrow, and is these type of bacteria called Listeria bacteria in the bone marrow, causing most types of cancer. And I feel like Epstein-Barr virus infects the Listeria bacteria in the bone marrow, causing carcinogenicity. Okay. There are some types of cancer that I don't think are caused by that, and I'll get to those. But yeah, so there's that. Bone marrow, Listeria. Listeria bacteria is killed the same way that strep is, and that is with adaptogens. So taking adaptogens not only can help cure your anxiety, but it can also help prevent cancer, especially things like breast cancer, things like that. All right, liver. Liver has a lot of potential stuff. Parvo, who I really enjoy his channel. He's talking about, like as far as high cholesterol and stuff. I'm thinking that's probably from a liver infection. So yeah, I hope you're not hearing a bunch of music right now. But anyway, so liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Now these are important ones. The pancreas and gallbladder need to be taken care of. They need to be cleaned out. How do you do that? You take food-grade diatomaceous earth. Now, because what happens is the pancreas has a duct that goes in the gut, and the gallbladder has a duct that goes in the gut. If the gallbladder gets infected, you get gallstones, and they want to remove your gallbladder. If the pancreas gets infected, you get pancreatic cancer, which they say is incurable. So, you really want to take care of those. You can take care of them with food-grade diatomaceous earth. Food-grade diatomaceous earth will cure pancreatic cancer. It will prevent pancreatic cancer. It will prevent gallstones. It'll cure, if you're feeling pain in your right side, that's probably your gallbladder. If you're feeling pain on your left side, that's probably your pancreas. So if you're ever feeling pain like that, you need to take food grade diatomaceous earth. And the brain. The brain can a lot of times have streptococcus. You're going to want to take adaptogens, and those can cross the blood-brain barrier. I want to say to increase the bioavailability of adaptogens, you want to add in a steroidal saponin like Tribulus terrestris or sarsaparilla. Now, these two aren't necessarily adaptogens, but they help the absorption of adaptogens. So you want to include those in your adaptogen regimen. Also, other things in the brain, some gram-negative stuff, maybe some Proteus in the brain, same stuff that's in the kidneys. Some of that could be in the brain. A good way to go about that is oregano oil. So that's a good way to get up in the brain for other stuff that adaptogens can't get. Also, adaptogens can clear out staph bacteria in the nasal passages. If you're, my nasal passages are decent right now, but if they're kind of plugged up, adaptogens could possibly help with that. Also, adaptogens help with the eyes. If your eyesight is not perfect, adaptogens will probably help because it's strep bacteria in the eyes that's causing that problem. So adaptogens can also help with the sinuses, clearing the nasal passages, but also essential oils like oregano, clove, eucalyptus, stuff like that. Just taking it internally, a few drops at a time, can also help with the nasal passages, because there's probably two types of bacteria up there. There's the streptococcus or staphylococcus, which is killed the same way as strep is in there, and probably also some gram-negative bacteria in there as well, causing that inflammation in the nasal passages so that you can't breathe as well. Alright, so that may be pretty much it for now. There's a lot of info there. I feel like this is a good foundation to build on. This is the foundation update. If you know No Man's Sky, you will get that joke. But yeah, so this is the basics, the basic tour of the body. If we take care of all those problems I just said, we're off to a good start. Another thing that I've been thinking a little bit about lately is beta thalassemia, which is just one of many genetic issues. I believe it's caused by an infection of the bone marrow by Yersinia bacteria, which causes the hemoglobin in red blood cells to be made faulty. So if you're getting, if your pee is very, very yellow, that might be one symptom of this. Anemia. Anyway, I don't really want to get into it too much right now, but I feel like, two bacteria, Yersinia and also H. pylori, feed off of the, H. pylori feeds off the excess iron released by the beta thalassemia. Anyway, just something I've been thinking about lately a little bit. So anyway, I think, just in closing for now, I think that pretty much every disease and problem is caused by a bacteria, as kind of, not necessarily as a root cause, but as kind of a central cause is that bacteria. I feel like toxins could supercharge that bacteria, or maybe viruses are the problem, but the bacteria is the host of the viruses. So I feel at the core, at the center, we have bacteria in almost every problem, even genetic problems, even cancer, all of this stuff. And beneath the bacteria, we have toxins that create an environment where the bacteria can flourish, where the immune system is suppressed, where the bacteria is fed. So anyway, like I said before in my last video, this is going to be a rambling series. It's going to be called NatureHacker's Guide to the Body. This is part 1. So, it's not going to be too cohesive, but if you're watching it every time, you're going to learn something, and hopefully you learn a lot. So anyway, thanks for watching. I am the Nature Hacker. Let's go do work.